We're in this series on the 10 Commandments. That's what we've been doing this summer. So we've gotten through the first 7, all right? And we're going to be going into number 8 today. How many of you, again, just get people kind of involved and stuff, how many of you feel like you're starting to get a little more familiar with them? Raise your hand. Okay? So let's see. We've just been doing this every week. I've just been reviewing it. So try in your minds, even if you're too introverted and too nervous and too scared to say it out loud, see if you can figure out, okay? And those of you who are brave enough, you can just shut it up. But what's the first commandment again? Right. No other gods before Yahweh. What's the second one? No idols. Right? What's the third one? You're getting it. Don't take Yahweh's name in vain, right? So these are all ones we've covered already. What's the fourth one? Yeah, keep the Sabbath. Which, of course, we don't keep, right? That's been the fun part of this series. But that's the 10 Commandments, but we don't keep that one anymore. What's the fifth one? Oh, shoot, I put it up. Yeah. Oh, wow, you guys are really good on that one. Awesome. Okay, what's the sixth one? Yes, murder. And then last week we covered what? Don't commit adultery. All right, so we're actually getting through. It's amazing how fast the summer goes by, hey? So we're getting down to the final 3. So anybody know what number 8 is? Yeah, steal, or actually better, don't steal. You shall not steal. Now, probably some of you are thinking to yourself, oh, this is kind of a basic one. Kind of like, don't murder. It's kind of simple. Like the way we think of stealing, physically taking an object off of a shelf at a store and walking out without paying. I bet you most of us probably aren't tempted even to do that. Maybe some of us are. Okay, so we got to fight that temptation then, but most of us probably aren't even tempted to do that. So I wonder if a lot of us, when we see this, it's like this is more of like a kids ministry commandment. And so today we want to ask a couple of questions about this. We're going to get through 3 different questions about this commandment today, okay? So one of the things we're going to deal with is, how big a deal is this really? How big a deal is stealing in our society? How big a deal is it in our personal lives? All right? Are there ways that aren't just grabbing something off the shelf, which maybe most of us aren't really tempted to do? Are there other ways in our modern society that are more tempting for many of us to steal? Which then brings up the question, which we've got to deal with today, is what does stealing look like in our modern day and age? All right, in ancient times when this commandment was written, stealing was a very physical thing. All right? And people didn't own much. And they were living, as we talked about in some of these sermons already in the 10 Commandments, they were living subsistence level. All right? So everybody had to work together in the family to make enough food and stuff to live. And so the kind of things that would be stolen were actually like you could make someone die ultimately if you steal food from them. They've got all kinds of food stored for winter. If you steal an animal from which that's how you plow your fields, or that's where you get your wool or your milk or whatever. So stealing was very physical in ancient times, and there was a direct connection. You steal from someone, you're actually hugely impacting their life. You might even be affecting their ability to survive, and that's part of the reason why in the ancient world, the punishments for stealing were very severe. But in our world, in our modern day and age, stealing is less physical often. And so we want to look at, and at the end of this message, we're going to look at what does stealing look like. We're going to look at 7 common forms stealing takes in our modern day and age that we need to protect ourselves against, but also some of us might find ourselves thinking, ooh, I'm actually tempted on that one. Might not be tempted to grab something off the shelf, but I might be tempted in that one. But before we get to either of those, though, there's one other question we've got to ask and answer. And it's because it's going to take us down further into what is God like, and how do we actually know the difference between right and wrong? So we're going to ask this question, and this is where we're going to spend the first little bit of the sermon, is, are there exceptions when it's okay to steal? Because if there are, what does that tell us about God? What does that tell us about these commandments? Because, how do we know right and wrong? Like, aren't these commandments black and white? Like, if they're just black and white, they're just universal truths. It's always a sin to break one. And if you break it, you've done something bad. Or is there something deeper going on? And if there is something deeper going on, how do we actually tell the difference between right and wrong? So the obvious one, and actually I could show you a number of different exceptions, but we're just going to spend time on one. And again, then we're just going to dive deep into it. And we're going to see what we can learn about God and about each other and about society from that. But the obvious kind of question, extreme situation we have to ask is, let's put this one. Imagine a family, a starving family somewhere in the world, and the kids are very hungry and malnourished. And a kid is walking by a marketplace and sees a couple of loaves of bread, nobody's looking, and so snatches the loaves of bread and runs home with the bread and eats the bread. So question, is that stealing, yes or no? Yes. Has this child sinned? Okay, so good. By the way, I love it. I love that we're answering and stuff. So let's look at that. Okay, so they've sinned. They've stolen a loaf of bread. Is that as bad as someone, just walking into a store, some kid who just wants something, and they just grab something and take it? Is it the same level of badness? Is it the same level of sin? Okay, so interesting. What you guys are saying is that you believe there are gray areas with God's commands. Wow, you compromising. You're one of those people. Like, isn't that like us Christians? No, we stand for truth. It's black and white, right and wrong. And actually, I just showed you guys, and I can show you other examples, but actually many of us on these commandments that seem so clear can find all kinds of scenarios where things are more gray than we think. And by the way, that scenario I just put to you is a lot less hypothetical than we think, isn't it? Like you might say, Kris, you're just putting out a very hypothetical scenario that doesn't actually happen in the real world. Oh, really? Did you know in the world right now, it's about 35.5 million right now, 36 million children. We're just talking children who are in some critical stage of malnourishment to starvation right now. That's just the kids. There's 120 to 150 million people in emergency to catastrophic hunger right now. Now imagine your dad, that's right now. Now imagine your dad, let's take it off the kid, because a kid is a kid. Let's imagine your dad and your kids are very malnourished and they're hungry, and you go buy a loaf of bread, or you can't buy it, but you walk by a loaf of bread, and you're tempted to take it. Now this one, don't answer out loud, but just think to yourself, what do you think? Should you take the loaf of bread or should you leave it? Now this is where as Christians, so this is where we have to really look at these commands so we can get at God's heart and what the commandments actually are for. But because there's a lot of well-fed Christians who think this answer is very easy. So let's talk about some of the formulaic answers we give. Because a lot of us would say, no, you shouldn't steal. Instead of stealing, here's what you should do. You should just trust God. Right? So here's one of the formulas we use. And some of you are going, where is he going with this? Because this is such a clear formula for us that we actually just think it's the bald truth all the time. So that dad whose children are, and again, this is not some wildly hypothetical scenario. This is a very real kind of scenario for hundreds of millions of people in our world today. So a lot of Christians would just say, okay, well, no, but you never break a commandment. You never break a commandment because breaking a commandment is a sin. It's a wrong thing to do. So you say, well, what should that dad do instead? Instead of taking that loaf of bread, he should not take the loaf of bread and he should trust God because then God will provide. Now, first of all, this is an absolutely beautiful sentiment. And actually, I think in a lot of scenarios, in a lot of cases, it's a very good sentiment. But if we put this formula to the test of the real world, Does it actually work? Did you know that every year, these are just some of the most terrible, sad statistics, and I think as Christians we need to be aware of them. Did you know that every year, about 2 million children under 5, we're not talking even 6 years old and up, we're not talking teenagers, young adults, and adults, who all matter greatly to God too. We're just talking 5 years old and under. 2 million children every year, 5 years and older, die of things that should not kill them, but because of malnourishment, they do. And you say, well, did they not trust God? Did they not trust God? Was none of them a believer, as if God would only save believers? Or maybe these kinds of formulas provide us with too easy answers. Just trust God and God will provide. Okay, well, if that formula doesn't work, another Christian thing we sometimes like to say as well, it would just be better to suffer or die than to break one of God's laws. Like God would just rather have you watch your family starve than to break one of his laws, because to him, keeping his laws, he's a holy God. We love that word holy. He's a holy God, therefore he gets very mad at rule breaking. Is that what holiness means? Well, interestingly enough, did you know that there are some fascinating, very gray verses in the Bible? And of course, me being me, they're some of my favorite. I bet you very few of you have ever memorized this verse. It's from the Proverbs. Proverbs 6, people do not despise a thief if he steals to satisfy his hunger. How many of you knew that was in there? When he is starving. How many of you are like, oh yeah, my parents drilled that one into us. My Sunday school, they drilled that one into us. This is one, it's almost like, oh, close that up. Don't show that verse. This is an actual verse in the Bible. Now, again, okay, so technically, some of you might think, well, technically, the writer of Proverbs is not saying it's okay to steal a loaf of bread when you're hungry. He's just saying that it's, people don't despise. He's just saying we just understand when someone who's starving steals a loaf of bread. Well, and that is true. You're right. He's not explicitly saying it's an okay thing to do or it's the right thing to do, but he is getting at something we all intuitively know. The more desperate people get, the more gray some of these commandments get. And by the way, and some of you are going, oh, I just don't like this mess. Why did I come to church this morning? I don't like gray. My life is already very stressful. I like it when things are just clear-cut, right and wrong. Just so you know, I'm going to get to right and wrong. I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you one thing that is black and white. And it's a thing that underlines everything else. And it makes doing the right thing much easier to see. But first, we have to look at something else, and we have to acknowledge something else, and that is this. The more desperate things are, and this is about rules, and this is about God's commands, and this is about God's laws too. And by the way, I could show you many examples in Scripture. But the more desperate things are, the more gray things get with God's commands and God's rules. Now, we know this in everyday life. So, for example, let's talk, what were the examples? I had a bunch here and I don't want to get myself in trouble. Okay, yeah. So, obviously, let's take a real obvious one. Killing someone for no reason, obviously, really bad. Don't murder. Like, just to intentionally kill someone and not have a good reason. Well, what's a good reason? Now I'm going to get myself in trouble. But just to kill someone is really, really bad. Okay? So, you would say, oh, see, don't murder. That's black and white. Okay. Another scenario. Also not a super big hypothetical. Happens every day in wars around the world. Imagine a situation where a soldier is under very stressful circumstances, is very tired, is very afraid, whatever it is, and then isn't as careful as he or she should be, doesn't do some of the things he or she should do, and ends up killing an innocent bystander, an innocent civilian. Now, is that horrible? Yes. Every time someone dies unnecessarily like that, it's just horrible, it's terrible. But is that the same amount of badness as someone who just intentionally, cold-heartedly plans out and murders someone? And the answer, just so you know, is it's not. We don't punish them the same. All right, let's even take it another. And by the way, this kind of thing happens all too regularly in our broken world today. Stuff like that. But we can even take another situation, which is your loved ones are in danger. And out of self-defense or to protect people you love, you kill someone. You physically try to stop them and you end up killing them. That's even a different thing. It's, again, much, much more gray. There may even be situations where it's okay to kill in self-defense or whatever. So the point is, the more desperate things are, the more gray they often get. That's just a fact. I mean, speeding, you see someone speeding, dangerous speeding. Not the okay kind of speeding. And all the C personalities, I'm going to get emails this week. There's no okay speeding. Got it. Check. If only I could feel bad about it. But we're talking about dangerous speeding. So you're going 50 or 60 kilometers an hour over the speed limit. Obviously, you're endangering people's lives. That is a bad thing. Now imagine the person's wife is going into labor on the seat beside him. Less bad. Kid choking in the back seat, trying to get him to the hospital. Less bad. There may even be situations where it's okay. Now, think about this. Again, don't think, oh, he's just finding all the most extreme circumstances. I'm actually sharing with you all kinds of situations that have real-world applications where things that you might think are black and white are actually gray. Now, multiply that into all kinds of areas where we Christians judge people left, right, and center. Multiply that into areas like, divorce, people, with serious mental health issues who give in to drugs, and on and on and on. And we judge people, well, they shouldn't have done that. They should have done that. They should have done that. They shouldn't have done that. And you say, are you saying bad behavior is okay? I'm not saying bad behavior is okay at all. I'm saying we love to judge other people from a place that we just want everything to be simple and clear and black and white. And the reality is, even when it comes to God's commands and God's laws, that things are more gray than we often think they are. I think of, I'm almost hesitant to share this example, but then, no, I'm not. Because some of the reasons I do some of these things really intentionally, because sometimes we actually have to be stretched as believers so that we can actually begin to take in God's love for ourselves and for others. And when things are too simple and we're too judgy, and as I'm going to show you at the end of this message, actually we end up disobeying God's commands. But I'm thinking, I counted the other day, I have about a dozen families here at Crossview where at some point in the last 5 years, they've come to me and they have an adult child who's come out as gay. So I'm going, oh, brother, here we got to talk about this. This is everyday life. We're not talking extreme. And inevitably, in a bunch of these cases, at some point, there's a wedding. Now, what's the parents going to do? Well, for lots of Christians who aren't in the situation, it's a black and white answer. You got to stand strong. I know you love them, but the way you love them is black and white, stand for truth. Well, hey, and maybe that is the way in prayer, and as you walk out what you're doing, that may be the route you take. I've seen parents and family members choose a whole host of different things. I've seen families where they chose, you know what? We're going to go to the wedding because we just want to show love. We want to keep the relationship, and we want to do it that way. And you know what inevitably happens afterwards? A whole bunch of their Christian friends and family members judge them harshly and tell them, see, you're just giving in to the culture. That's like the common thing now. You're given into the culture. The moment you do anything that is outside of black and white, you're given into the culture. But is that people who aren't walking it's just like the person on the highway. They see someone go by at 160, and they're like, that is absolutely dangerous and wrong. Yeah, and it is, unless there's some kid in the back seat that needs to get to the hospital real quick. I've seen other families that chose the other thing, because I'm still not up here today telling you it's black and white on the other side and telling you, oh, you actually have to go. I've seen other parents wrestle through and say, no, we're not going. And I've talked to some of them after it happened who have no relationship with their kids, and they think it's the right thing to do. But the agony is intense. It's your own flesh and blood, the people you love the absolute most. And they might feel, oh, that's the right thing to do. Others of them regret it. But the only problem in all of this, my problem is not with what parents who walk through it wrestle through and end up doing. My problem is with all the sideline Christians who think the choice is clear and easy. People who think everything's clear and easy usually have had quite easy lives themselves. And they're in such a bubble that they don't know what it's like to be stretched outside of that bubble. To actually love people who are not in the bubble. We have to have grace in those situations. Now, some of you are going, okay, Kris is saying there's no right or wrong. I just knew it. I've known it the whole time I've been here at Crossview. I've known that guy doesn't believe in right and wrong. He's saying there's no black and white. I'm actually going to show you that I am more black and white than lots of Christians in this area are. And you're like, oh, this should be good. So first, just let me get this statement out of the way. Let me show you this. Every one of us picks and chooses where we're gray and where we're black and white. Every one of us does it. You cannot live in the real world unless you live in a room by yourself. You cannot live just black and white. You will be gray somewhere. So here's what I have fun with a lot of my Christian friends who think they're more black and white than I am. Let me give you two quick examples of places where as a Christian and as a human being, I'm incredibly black and white. And I'm more black and white than a lot of people are. So for example, I'm real black and white on genocide. Now some of you are giggling. Oh my, we all are. Actually, a lot of Christians aren't. You say, what's genocide? Well, I think it is always wrong, 100% of the time, in all cases, to kill men, women, children, and babies, all the people of a particular group of people. Like for me, there's no gray area on that. There's no situation where that's okay. And you say, oh, who wouldn't be in favor of that? Well, I can take you to at least half a dozen different passages in the Old Testament that say God told the Israelites to kill all the men, the women, and the children. That includes the babies. And you know what a lot of my awesome Christian friends will say is they will say, but in that case, the reason they had to kill all the babies, the babies, and the moms and the teenagers, all them. But the reason they had to do it, in that case, it was merciful. And I'm always like, time out. If we call killing all the children and the babies and the moms and the women and children, if that's merciful, the word merciful has lost its meaning. It no longer means anything. But they say, in that case, it was necessary. By the way, whole books have been written about this. You can find them on Amazon and Christian bookstores. It was all necessary because those people were so bad. They were so wicked. They were so wicked that God just had to kill them all. Even the babies? Yeah, even the babies. And I say, what? See, that's just you've just created a gray area. There is a gray area for genocide. If things get bad enough, you can kill everyone. Now, I have a real problem with that. I tend to be a little bit of a stickler, a little bit of a black and white thinker, as I said to you before. I think genocide is never okay. I think all of those passages are, as I've told you before, accommodation. I think God accommodated himself to the Israelites. I think the Israelites, living in a brutal ancient culture, thought God was in favor of genocide because they thought it was okay, and they thought God wanted them to kill everybody in some of those scenarios, and he didn't. And they were wrong about all kinds of other things, like the earth being flat. Yes, that's wrong, just in case you're one of those and you're here today. You're still saved, but you're wrong. Anyway. They were wrong about all kinds of things, and God didn't change their science. He didn't change their ideas about the world. He let them be wrong about it, and they were wrong about genocide. I'm kind of black and white on that one. But other people will say, well, no, there's a reason that God could have done it. No, a good God can never command something that's wrong. Otherwise, the word good ceases to have meaning. If God can command genocide or murder or slavery or any of those things, he ceases to be good, or the word good has no meaning. Now, someone might say, well, but they were just so bad. We're just going to go under here because you just have to see something here. Like, think about the Nazis. I mean, that's just our cartoon example for everything. It's always okay to refer to the Nazis as evil. Like, they were really, really bad. We could say they were really, really, really evil. At the end of World War II, what I'm about to say is extremely offensive. Of course, it's highly hypothetical, obviously. It's just so disturbing to say we have to apply that to the Bible as well. Nobody at the end of World War II thought we should just kill all the German people. It's horrible even to think about. It's disgusting. Nobody thought we should kill all the babies of the Nazis because the Nazis were so evil. Nobody thought that. It would have been evil. And yet we think that some desert tribes in the Old Testament deserve to have their babies killed? No. A good God wouldn't command that. A good God couldn't command that. And our good God didn't command that. But that's because I'm black and white. If you have a gray area around genocide, now that's the interesting thing to me, is people can be black and white about attending a kid's gay wedding, but gray about genocide. You know another thing I'm black and white on? Slavery. I don't think there's ever an excuse for one human being to own another human being. Now, some Christians will read, there's a whole bunch of laws in the Old Testament that say slavery was okay. And Christians will say, well, I guess it was okay because they treated the slaves okay. Oh, in that case, we got a gray area again. Slavery's okay if, by the way, I see Christians actually defending slavery. Some Christians in the States right now are defending slavery. They're saying it wasn't as bad. People were kind to the slaves. They fed them. Would you like to be owned by someone as long as they were nice to you? No. It's always wrong. The Israelites were wrong about it. They were wrong that they thought God was okay with it. They were just wrong, and God loved them anyway. That's accommodation. It's been around for 2,000 years. But I'm black and white on slavery. A lot of Christians are a little bit gray when they read some parts of the Bible. And that's my point, is we pick and choose where we're gray and where we're black and white. I'm actually very black and white on a whole bunch of things. So you say, well, how do we know then? Is there anything in this world that's black and white? What is black and white? How do we know right from wrong if there can be gray areas in some of these commandments? Let me show you that there is a very black and white foundation underneath all of God's commands. And some of you know where I'm going already because I'm a broken record here at Crossview. I could show you half a dozen different passages in the New Testament. Literally, I'm going to go to a famous one where Jesus talks to us about what is the most important thing. Oh, he's going there again. We are Christians, right? So I guess Jesus' teaching has to apply. Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. Then he says this, and the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. That's the most important thing in the world. That is the most important thing. I don't care which command you get the most upset about and you're the most black and white about. This is the most important thing. All. Not 75%. 75%, 60%, 80% of the law is about love. No. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. Love people and love God. You know what that means? Here's a common thing you will hear pastors sometimes say. How do I know what love looks like? Love looks like, the commandments show us what love looks like. That's actually flipped. The commandments do not show us what love looks like. Love shows us what the commandments are supposed to function like. The commandments serve love, not the other way around. When the commandments get in the way of love, the commandments need to be broken. Example, Corrie ten Boom, famous example, and we're going to talk about lying next week. Corrie ten Boom and many Christians in World War II, back to the Nazis. That's always our favorite example because we know we can say they're evil and nobody will be offended. Corrie ten Boom and lots of Christians in Europe hid Jews in their homes from the Nazis and blatantly lied. They would lie when the authorities would come and would ask them questions or ask whatever or search the house. They would lie. Did they break the commandment? Yes. Did they sin? No. Yeah, no. Thank you for having the guts to be wrong. Because the commandments serve love. I'll tell you right now, if you tell the truth so that someone else loses their life, like not in a sort of giving witness in a court case, but in such a way that it's malicious, that's when you're breaking the command, because the commandment is about love. Love is the thing. So, here's what the commandments do. You want to understand the 10 Commandments? You want to understand the laws in the Bible? Here's what the commandments do. Show us what love usually looks like in most circumstances, but the thing that matters is love. So yes, most of the time, stealing and lying and killing are absolutely unloving, the wrong things to do. But there are times when you have to lie to protect someone you love. So again, this isn't saying what people have to do. This is telling us what the commands actually do. Love is the black and white foundation. To value human life, to protect human life, to do unto others what you would have them, to protect people. That's the thing. And the commandments flesh that out, how that usually looks in society. Love is the foundation. The commandments have gray areas, but we learn our way through them by love. So now, let's talk about stealing. 7 common forms. This is not exhaustive, but clearly stealing, the vast majority of the time, in most cases, is harmful to other people. It's not the loving thing to do. And actually, it impacts us in our society a lot more than we think. Some of these are mostly ways in which we are victims. Many of us aren't actually tempted to do them. Some of these, as we go down the list, might be things you've been tempted to do or have actually done. But let's look at the group of the first 3. 3 common forms of stealing. You say, well, I can't believe we're doing this in a message. Yeah, this is taking the Bible. They didn't have fishing, PH fishing, in the Old Testament. Now you say, what is fishing with a PH? All right, now these are common. These are real common forms of stealing nowadays. These first 3, I doubt any of us in here is tempted to do, but there's people in our lives that we love who have been or will be affected by this. What is fishing with a PH? This is when you get a text or an email and it's from the government, or it's from your bank, or it's from Manitoba Hydro, or whatever, some legitimate place, Amazon. It's usually highly urgent. You did not pay your taxes. The RCMP are on their way, blah, 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 blah. Click this link. And then you click the link, and next thing you know, they're stealing money from you. This happens all the time. phishing. There's investment fraud. So a lot of this happens online. It's electronic. It's not just old people that are taken advantage of, but tends to be the elderly who are the most vulnerable. But investment fraud is sales guy comes to your house or whatever, gets contact you online. Amazing returns. You're going to get the best returns you ever imagined. And right there, get out of my house. Get off my computer. And you just give me this money and you're going to get returns awesome. And they'll have a great looking website. By the way, just because people have a great looking website doesn't mean they're on the up and up. AI can make you a great website now in 2 minutes. And next you know, they're running away with your money. Credit card fraud, using your credit card. Did you know, so I looked up 2024 numbers, 46% of Canadians in 2024, that was the most recent I could get, 46% of Canadians had someone attempt one of these on them in the past year. So every year, and that's not even everybody actually reports it, but half of us every year, someone's trying to get us. Probably multiple times during the year. In 2024, they figured about 110,000 people were victimized by one of these 3 forms. But again, only about 10% of people ever report. So it's probably over 1 million every year who are actually victimized. And the amount of money stolen is in the billions. Now again, most of us aren't doing this. Good. If you are, very bad. I'm serious. God's mad at you. Come talk to me after. You're going to do some jail time, but I'm going to visit you. Okay? That's my commitment to you. Any Crossview member who ends up in jail, I will visit you. Okay? I'm going to make sure you get sent to jail, but then I'm going to visit you. Okay? So let's move on. That's online lecture. So we have to, on this one, you might not be convicted. Oh, yeah, I've been doing that. I've been doing some phishing. I got to stop that. Okay, yeah, good. But we need to protect people, and we need to support the government and pay our taxes and encourage our government to protect us because we can't protect ourselves just on our own. We actually need our government to help us on this. So sometimes don't always complain about the government. Every once in a while, like 1 out of 3, try to say something positive. Let's talk about more impersonal, physical kinds. Now, some of you have experienced this. Hopefully, none of you are doing this. Employee theft is another huge one here in Canada. This is where people steal from the place where they work. It used to mostly be cash from the till. That's less now because there's less cash, but it still happens a lot. But it's stealing inventory. It's stealing whatever from, tools, different things. That's employee theft. Impacts more than 1 billion. We got somewhere in the billions every year. We got more than 1 billion just on this one. You know what's another part of employee theft? Now this one might hit some of us. It's called payroll theft. It's claiming hours that you didn't actually work. It's exaggerating the amount of overtime. It's exaggerating how far you drove. It's claiming things on your receipts. All of this is employee theft. You're stealing from the place where you work. And you might think, now here's the excuse that some people will give. Oh, it's just a little bit. Or, I don't like my boss. He's a jerk. Can I just tell you about something about your boss? When you steal from your boss at work, do you know who pays for that? His customers. Because a business has to survive. They pass it on. And they have to. Besides, you are a Christian, which means you love your enemies and you turn the other cheek. So no matter how bad your boss is, you don't steal. Here's another one. Oh, now I know I'm hitting one person online probably. Return fraud. Did you know this one's over $1 billion now in Canada as well? This is where people intentionally buy things. I have to confess something. I did this in university. One time. No, don't woo that. My whole dorm, I went to a Christian university the first 2 years. All of us Christian. All of us went to church physically every week, which is more than I can say for most of you. And And it was the World Cup, but not for soccer. It was like the hockey one. And it was wintertime. And we bought a huge TV from Canadian Tire, knowing that there was no way a bunch of broke university students were going to buy a TV for the dorm. So our 100% Christian dorm bought a very large TV, watched all of the competition for like whatever it was, 2 weeks, and then promptly returned it. Now, I actually felt too bad. So I felt too bad to be the one actually lying. So we had another guy go back and return it for us. Okay, that's actually, and like, oh, it's so sweet. No, actually, when we all do this, guess who pays? It's the customers. This is why when you add these up, billions, billion, billion, and then we wonder, oh, like actually, dishonesty is a big driving force behind inflation and the cost of living. Did you know that? And I haven't even got to the biggest ones yet, but we'll go step down one. Some of you need to repent. I've repented. I've even publicly confessed. So the demons of that are gone. And now, obviously, there's shoplifting. This one's $1 to $2 billion. This is a huge deal. Any of you who works in groceries, you know that the margins are like razor thin. And the amount of stealing, again, it's $1 to $2 billion. We don't know exactly, but on a razor thin margins. And again, what do all the grocers have to do? What do all the businesses have to do? They have to raise. The rest of us have to pay more to cover for everybody who's stealing. You can't run a country this way on dishonesty. But the biggest one, and hopefully not a bunch of you are convicted on this one, but we talked about investment fraud. That's very different. Don't get that confused with the other I, is insurance fraud. This one might be costing, it's hard to know, it might be costing Canadians $3 to $5 billion a year. And this is where people claim medical expenses they didn't actually use, or they buy non-prescription glasses and call them prescription. They exaggerate how much a procedure cost. They fake injuries and collect insurance, all kinds of stuff. Investment fraud costs Canadians billions every single year, and it's stealing. And again, here's the excuse. And it should never be an excuse for a follower of Christ, because we even love our enemies. So even if your boss isn't an enemy, you still love them if you're a Christian. But here's the excuse. With that one, I'm stealing from the big bad insurance companies. So let me just explain to you again how this works. First of all, if you work for an insurance company, I'm not saying you're big or bad. That's what some people say. I need my insurance. But this is what humans do. We come up with an excuse. Did you know one of the biggest things, just the way our brains are wired? We don't like to think of ourselves as dishonest. This is fascinating, some of the studies on this. So people who steal, and they're just blatantly doing things that have no integrity, will, the vast majority of the time, unless they're a sociopath, we will come up with excuses why it's okay, because we don't like to think of ourselves as dishonest. Nobody gets up in the morning and says, I am a dishonest, no character person. So we just come up with reasons. So you might think to yourself, well, I'm exaggerating this claim, or I'm doing this because this billion-dollar company doesn't care about me, blah, 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 blah. That's your excuse. So it doesn't hurt if I make an extra couple $100 or do this or do that. I want to just say to you again, none of the millionaires who run these companies, which, by the way, are essential for us. And by the way, same is true for pharmaceutical companies. I'm not saying they all have great motives. They all want to make money, for sure. And have they done some shady things? Absolutely. But where would we be without our pills? And where would we be without insurance? We kind of need these things. None of the millionaires who run these companies lose money when you steal from them. Because guess where they pass that loss on to? The rest of us. We pay. Regular people pay. Rich people almost never pay for stealing when they're stolen from. It's regular people who pay, because we're the ones who pay the premiums. So there is no excuse. But even if that was an excuse, we have no excuse. You add up all of these different forms of stealing, and there are other ones. I'm going to tell you something right now. You cannot have our standard of living that we have here in Canada if everybody just thinks I'm out for myself. We absolutely can't do it. Without a nationwide culture of integrity, we cannot maintain our standard of living. That's just a fact. Did you know that there are dozens of countries in the world today that are out of this world corrupt? They have cultures of corruption. You go there, and 9 out of 10 people think the only way for me to get by is for me to get as much as I can. And they take bribes, and they cheat, and they lie, and they exaggerate, and everybody tries to take, and it's a culture of taking. And do you want to know what all of those countries have in common? They're all, now this is going to sound offensive. Let me explain it so that you don't get this wrong. They're all poor. Now let me explain what I mean by that. I don't mean poor people have no integrity. I mean, when everybody steals, you can't have a country. And everybody only thinks it's just a little bit. It's just me. And actually, your whole country falls apart. You find the countries with the best standards of living, and you'll find the countries that are the lowest on the corruption index. Indexes that people measure these things on. So guess what? What you and I do in every day. Now you say, well, what is a culture? Well, I can't impact a culture. That's just the movies. That's the music. That's the culture. It's the famous people. No. You know what a culture is? A culture is just the sum total of all the decisions and actions that the people in that culture take from day to day. So when ordinary, everyday people refuse to exaggerate their insurance claims, refuse to return things that they shouldn't be returning, refuse to lie and steal and take advantage and try to get something for themselves, when millions of people refuse to do those things, that's how you build a strong, wonderful, prospering country. And we can't wait for other people to do it. As Christians, we should be on the front leading edge of this. Now, I'm not going to ask you how many of you used to share Netflix passwords. Well, that's just a minor one, and they're a billion-dollar company, and they've clamped down on it anyway. That's why I use it, because I don't think any of you are doing that anymore. When you just do the little things like that, and you think you're sticking it to the man, when really everybody else is just paying more so you can have something for free, that's part of culture. We can impact, every one of us here impacts in our day-to-day life the culture of integrity we have in Steinbach, in Manitoba, and Canada. And as Christians, we have the golden rule to guide us. If you don't want 40 million other Canadians do it so the whole system collapses, we shouldn't be doing it. If you don't want everybody else doing it, we shouldn't be doing it. If you wouldn't want it done to you, we shouldn't be doing it. So I want to finish with this commitment. We're not going to all stand and put our right hand over our heart. But I'm going to pray this, and I hope that we can make this commitment. We refuse to take advantage of the system, whatever that system is. The business we work in, our government at whatever level, insurance, whatever the case is, we are followers of Christ, and we want to contribute to a safe, high standard of living, wealthy, prosperous country, and that starts with honesty. Would you bow your heads with me and close your eyes? Father in heaven, we commit ourselves. First of all, I'm thankful that we live in a country that is in the top 10 or so lowest corruption countries on earth. And there's a reason we get to live the way we do. We have quite strong base of system-wide integrity. But Lord, we can never take that for granted. We want to commit ourselves to the big things, to the small things, to being honest, to have an integrity that spreads to the people around us so that we can continue to enjoy a prosperous, safe, and wonderful country. Thank you, Jesus, for how you're going to help us in this and reward us as we do this. In Jesus' name we pray, and all God's people said, amen.